Very affordable.
Time pressures.
Time pressures, yeah. How do personal time pressures affect volunteers?
Yeah. I think we all say we're busier than ever. I'll sort of pass on that. I'm not sure we are, but we all, I think, feel we're busier than ever, or that we have to say that we're busier than ever. And there's this word, the overwhelm, isn't it? It's a point of pride now for busy middle class people to be overwhelmed and dashing from one thing to another. So there's a widespread perception that our time has to be used well and be very, very focused. And we're moving from one sort of agency to another, or one meeting to another. Beyond that, there's another problem, I think, in that I think perhaps fewer people are coming forward to volunteer than used to. There is a debate about that, but even if the numbers are level, then they seem to be giving less time to their volunteering weekly than they used to. So, if people give 15 minutes less time a week to volunteer, well, that's no big deal, is it? Except that if you multiply 15 minutes times 18 million, that being the number of people that volunteer weekly or monthly in the UK, then you've got an enormous amount of time is being lost. And also, I think that there's no good saying, is it more, are more people volunteering or less people volunteering? That is an interesting debate. But the question should be, are there enough people volunteering? I'm damn sure there aren't enough people volunteering, because many more agencies have vacancies than have people coming forward. So there are pressures there. Also, out in the public, that world out there, they think that volunteering means that you have to give 3 hours a week at the local youth club every Friday night, 50 weeks a year. That's how you volunteer. In fact, we know that there are many different time deals, as we call them. Time deals could be offered. At the other extreme, you could do some micro-volunteering at home. Every 10 or 15 minutes you've got spare, you could be working away doing work at home. Or you could seasonally volunteer. Every summer or every Christmas you could be involved actively. And you could do that on a residential basis rather than 3 hours a shift. So there are all sorts of ways of volunteering, and agencies can be much more flexible about their volunteering. Perhaps a pair of people could volunteer to cover a particular shift, but it's maybe not the same person every week, but they together, as a job share, pair of volunteers agreed to cover. So there are all sorts of different ways of volunteering, and we've got to try more flexibly to fit in with those ways. And it also links up with a changing world of work, I think. Years ago, in my father's generation, you would leave school at 18, or if you were lucky, and you would get a job, a 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday, and then you would do a bit of volunteering perhaps at the weekend. But now things are very different. You hope that job would see you through to retirement at 60 or 65. Things are very different now, and they estimate that people starting in the job market now will have 7 different jobs before they retire. And there are evening shifts and home working and all sorts of variations, I think. So I think voluntary agencies have to be much more creative and thoughtful about the deals they can do with volunteers, which is another argument actually for volunteer coordinators, because general purpose managers are going to be so wrapped up in other arguably bigger issues. So, but individual contracts can be drawn up with between volunteers and volunteer coordinators to allow for that sort of flexibility, and particularly for retired people who are much more active and much more healthy than they used to be, but they still want perhaps to spend time on the golf course or time with their grandchildren. So more flexibility, and I think volunteer coordinators could help that greatly.
So we're talking about finding the right role for the right person.
The right time deal.
Right time deal. Right, okay. And the organisations have to respond to what people need, or what fits in with their lifestyle, rather than the other way around.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Flexibility.
Yeah. And that isn't there yet, is it?
It's not there yet. I think people lead much more flexible working lives than they used to. And the voluntary sector has to adjust to meet them. They're not going to comfortably fit in.
Yeah, which goes back to that retention issues. If you can't actually entice or get someone to fulfil a volunteering role, could be the role's not appropriate, or it's not advertised, or you're not recruiting in the right way, or you're not actually seeking out the right person or publicising it in the right way to the right person at the right time.
Yes, I increasingly think there's no good just advertising for volunteers in a sort of global, generalised way. I think you've got to target the people that you want.
If there
I
are
heard
less,
about a Tankerton group who were looking for new football coaches. So where did they go? Well, there are a couple of big hotels that have, for international football matches, their lounges are crowded out. So they went to talk to people. That's where you find people who are interested in football. I think, there's no good just putting an article in the Whitstable Times or whatever. You've got go to the people who evidently are already interested in the sport.
yeah, I agree with that. Being proactive and focusing, and you're right,
Targeted.
targeted,
Knowing what you want, I think. Yeah.
which is goes back to organisations having to know what they really want, rather than what they've always done.
What sort of people, what sort of skills, what sort of time deals. And clarity also about what these volunteers can get out of their volunteering.
Yeah.
How can you induce them, incentivise them to work with you?
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Gordon. We've reached the end of our obstacle course for today, and it was great.
Okay.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me just